But appreciate Satish to get this going, I guess. Well, I did hear he was talking about how many knew about augmented reality. I did see some hands going up. I think half an hour ago, some wonderful speakers talking about the evolution of disruption, innovation, etc. So in my scenario, I wanted to talk about in the past 30 to even 80 years, the innovation in terms of the mass communication, where we feel, I think the humans, we have these 5 senses, I call the 5 instruments. We talk about the taste, the smell, the vision, the hearing senses, and of course the feelings, and the touch senses. These 5 instruments that I call them can feed our brain within a fraction of a second. Just give an example. You take a little muffin in a bakery, right? And you take this muffin and you can feel it, you can smell it. In just a fraction of a second, you can taste it. And if it has a chocolate bubble on it, it can pop, but you can hear it, and you can smell and you can see. This takes just a fraction of a second. You can get the information about how good it is, tasteful, soft, whatever it is, etc., right? So this is an example that I gave how these 5 instruments can feed your brain and get this information so that you can make a better judgment with this information. In the past 100 years, the first one that we look at is the innovation of how we have communicated from the Stone Age era to the print, where we started communicating using the prints. So here's the print that was used for communication, the sight vision that we have used to do that. The next innovation that came up is the televisions, right? We were able to see the information through which the information was consumed, which helped us become more knowledgeable. These are disruptive mediums where it changed the way we communicated. And the third thing that came up was the internet. Of course, the second one was the radio, which is the hearing senses came into picture, and the third one came up was the vision, which is the televisions. And then the next one came up was the internet era. But the internet era, when it came up, it's not about the hearing senses, whereas the audios, the televisions, which is the vision, the information of the text and all these things were communicated through this medium and was very effective for us. And it's not just the mass medium of the businesses, but also for the consumers who are able to access this information as well. And we all saw these disruptive mediums helped innovate many businesses that evolved. I still believe in the 80s and 90s, the washing powder Nirma, which many of you heard about those. This was a company which evolved or otherwise utilized this television medium when it came into picture, and took advantage of the medium for its mass marketing and advertisement scenarios there. And in the internet era, we all saw this Amazons of the world that really took advantage of the eBays, etc. And then the next one that came up was the mobile phones, which not only was able to get all this information for us, but also made us mobile. We're able to access the information anywhere where we wanted to go. And of course, we heard about the information about the Ubers and many other companies, the Airbnbs, etc. That helped us to get to the stage where the information were consumed effectively and efficiently. But the next generation that I feel, the next one that is about to come, or it is almost there, is the augmented reality and virtual reality. And you may have heard about the artificial intelligence, the AI, combined with this augmented reality and virtual reality is going to disrupt the way that we consume now and the next decade, I would say. So a little bit about the augmented reality. We want to talk about those. Augmented reality is nothing but just having a virtual content. It's a 3D content or otherwise the videos or whatever that you want to do. You're replacing with something else in real world. That means that you're augmenting into the real world. It's called augmented reality. And if you, which in simple terms so that everybody can understand. And rather than the augmenting or the replacing, if you're trying to mix it with real world, which doesn't exist, you're mixing it in real world, you call the mixed reality. And instead of the real world, if you start bringing in the virtual world, you call the virtual reality. This augmented reality, the key word was formed sometime in the 90s. When you combine this augmented, mixed, and virtual reality put together, you're extending this realism into a medium you call extended reality. That's a key word that was formed 2 years ago, which you will see or you will hear a lot more in the next coming years as the technology evolves and the business starts adapting to it. When I talk about these 5 instruments, the senses that I talked about, it doesn't matter what business it is. If a business or a product, software, hardware, whatever it is, if these hardwares or a product or a technology can bring these senses technically to us, that will become innovation. The same thing that we saw, the radios, which use the audio, which is hearing senses, the television brought in the vision senses, and so on and so forth. However, the audios and or the videos that we today still doesn't give what we do in real life. In real life, we see in 3D. I can see everything behind it. Still, the technology hasn't gotten that to us yet. The vision, the hearing senses still is not the way that we hear in real life. Example, when there is a sound, I can hear the sound is coming from this direction. However, the technology only gives from the device in one way. If there is a technology that can bring in this hearing senses from whatever the direction that I wanted to hear, that is disruptive. Of course, the innovation is taking place to bring those kind of innovation where 3D audio, which is evolving, which you probably will start using it in your entrepreneurism, I guess, I hope. Now, when we talk about the 3D or the 3D depth that I'm talking about, the disruptive medium is going to be the depth sensor that you're going to give is what the augmented reality is going to make us. And therefore, this is going to bring in closer to realism, and therefore, there's going to be a disruptive medium as well. So saying that, the next I want to talk about how this innovation take place. The evolution of this technology, it started in the 1960s. That's where the augmented reality took place. With computers, which is the size of a refrigerator, plugged in with wires to your back, and having this big helmets, glasses through which the information is visually seen in the real world. That's how it started in the 1960s. And then the evolution of the rest started there. And I'm just showing it to you with the time being in essence. I'm just going to fast forward. The Oculus Rift, you may have heard this. It was also an innovation. It brings a 3D depth sensor. And the beauty about it is it brings the other sensors, which your hands, it can sense your hand motions, whereas your vision is covered with your virtual world, which means you are in a virtual world, but you're interacting with your hand motion and gestures. So that was another disruption that was came in, which is you might have seen, we might see these kind of technology could be used, will be used in many other worlds, in not just the entertainment, marketing, industrial, and many other scenarios as well. The AR, augmented reality, really took off in the 2014, even though it has been there before. And only in 2014 is when this really took off. Reason being the devices like what we use here. The reason of these devices, which has enough amount of processor speed, and of course the broadband, which brings us the content that is dynamic into the devices, which enabled the mainstream to use that kind of a technology, not necessarily that everybody has to wear helmets or backpacks into there, right? And today, in the past 2 years, you can see many large players have come into this field in bringing in the virtual reality glasses and the ARs and many other as well. Now, how big is the augmented reality and virtual reality industry? And Here is an example. There is a virtual reality you might have seen where you had to wear glasses. In augmented reality, not necessarily you had to wear glasses. The glasses in the sense the glasses which where you can see through, or as a transparency where you can see the information outside. The virtual reality, this is how it is taking place in the next 5 years, where this industry is going to take up. This in the past year, in today what we see, I'm showing in the context of marketing and how any business, doesn't matter what business is, utilizing this technology and solving the problem of sales or the buyer's decision-making process, or the sellers, bringing down the sales funnel as well. So as of today, so 2017, this is a segment that we see. In the next 2 years, it is going to be tripling the size of the adoption of such technology in various different sales cycles. This is what we saw in earlier last year. It is around $7.4 billion industry in just a few years. In the next 1 year, or this year, we are seeing this into 3 times the size that is going to take place. This is the trend for the next 7 years, by various different organizations giving the information about how this AR, VR industry is going to take place in the next 7 years. This is reality metrics about global players bringing in the virtual reality devices. Some of them are hardwares, which means they produce the hardwares where you can plug it in, and some of them produce softwares which is around or which runs on those hardwares. That's on the far right side, on my right side. On the left side, you see the AR, augmented reality devices. Again, augmented reality, not necessarily you have to put the virtual reality glasses. You can also see something called glasses, just a glass that you wear, but through which you will see the information on the outside as well. So manufacturers, the large players who produce on far left on my side. On the top, you see the mobile AR, which means the softwares which run on the other side as well. And this, a holistic view of what the industry is all about. On the bottom side that you see is all the hardware manufacturers from the top players of the world. And in the middle, you see the infrastructure players, which means they produce the engines which recognitions. The image augmented reality is based on the principle of image recognitions. That's the core foundation for augmented reality. And that's what the middle layer, which means there are a lot of players who provides those engines. And the top layer is what the application providers or the softwares which use these engines to start developing applications which will satisfy the businesses of the world.